Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome to Policy and Rights, the show about government policy and human rights. Welcome back to Depictions Media Radio. As we've heard for months from Sheila Malcolmson and others with mental health and addictions, that the ongoing opiate crisis, the addiction that is at epidemic levels, where drug users are killing themselves with poisoned street drugs, and the different programs that she has brought forth to bring help to these people and to help them find their way through whatever the trauma was that caused the addiction to begin with. She's been working hard for the people of British Columbia in order to end this problem, along with the coroner's offices and also the public health officer, Dr. Bonnie Henry. They've teamed together to try to bring an end to this opiate crisis and to bring an end to what is now seen as a epidemic health crisis in British Columbia. David Eby was able to launch a litigation against the manufacturers of the opioids for wrongful marketing of their product, and he's making an announcement today about what would amount to be $150 million for programs to be to be funded from this litigation, where British Columbians who are suffering from addictions and the effects to their families would receive, those programs will receive this money. That he's making an announcement about one, the ongoing litigation against the opiate producers and their consultants to help market their products and market them irresponsibly. So he's counting this as a win in the corner of the people of British Columbia, with winning some money back to help fund programs to end addictions for these people addicted to the opioids that they have been given and taken. So let's listen to what David Eby and Sheila Malcolmson actually have to say about addictions, mental health, and the litigation that has been put forth. Along with that, David Eby is also going to answer some questions about if he's going to run for the BC NDP leadership seat, and maybe eventually become premier of British Columbia. He's going to make some statements about how he views it and how he feels about John Horgan stepping down as premier.
on the territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. I'm here today with Minister Sheila Malcolmson, our Minister for Mental Health and Addiction, to provide an update on BC's class action lawsuit against over 40 opioid manufacturers and distributors. In 2018, we began a class action lawsuit on behalf of Canada and all provinces and territories. And we enacted special legislation called the Opioid Damages and Healthcare Costs Recovery Act. We took this action to recover healthcare costs and to hold opioid companies to account for their part in allegedly engaging in deceptive marketing tactics to increase sales, which led to increased rates of addiction and overdose. Now, I want to give you the context of where we would be had we not taken these steps. Without the actions we'd taken, we would be grouped with other Canadian claims in the United States bankruptcy proceedings related to Purdue Pharma. The unsecured creditor group is limited to $15 million in recovery as a whole, and some Canadian claims are in fact grouped in that unsecured creditor grouping currently. We would have been facing the liquidation of Purdue Canada's Canadian operations to pay for U.S. claims. But we are not in that situation. Today, thanks to BC's leadership, on behalf of all Canadian provinces, territories, and the federal government, I can announce that we reached a $150 million settlement with Purdue Pharma Canada. This is the largest settlement of a governmental healthcare cost claim in Canadian history. The Purdue settlement will pave the way for future settlements in the ongoing litigation against other manufacturers and distributors of opioid products, as well as their consultants. The proposed settlement has been agreed to by all governments across Canada and will be put before the courts for approval. I want to take a moment to say that no amount of money will bring back those who we have lost to overdose. However, this settlement provides a significant recovery in lieu of lawsuits or the uncertainty of bankruptcy claims. It offers finality for government and for Purdue Canada. This unprecedented settlement was made possible by the cooperation and concerted action of Canadian governments across the country, all of which share a desire to abate the opioid epidemic. Holding multinational pharmaceutical companies and their consultants to account for their role in this public health emergency is the right thing to do. I want to note that this is only the beginning. We're committed to aggressively pursuing litigation against the other opioid manufacturers, distributors, and their consultants who put profits before people. In addition to the Purdue Canada settlement, BC's application to certify its class action lawsuit in the BC Supreme Court has been scheduled for fall 2023. I want to put all the other defendants on notice. This settlement with Purdue Canada includes cooperation with the provincial government in these remaining claims, and we will continue to aggressively pursue them. We expect and hope that this settlement with Purdue Canada will lead to further settlements to recover provincial healthcare costs. This is one step among many that our government is taking to ensure that we are addressing the overdose crisis on every front. I'd like to take a moment, although it's a bit early in proceedings given that this is one defendant, but to thank the legal team that continues their work on behalf of all provinces in Canada, Peter Lawless, Radar Mogerman, and Luciana Brazil, as well as their legal support team. I still recall when Mr. Lawless came to me with a proposal for this litigation and legislation. I'm very profoundly grateful to him for bringing this to our attention so that we can protect the interests of British Columbians. To that end, I'd like to invite Minister Malcolmson to say a few words.
Thank you, Minister Eby, and the BC team who's led this significant settlement, the first of its kind in Canada. I recognize also we're on the territory of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam people. Today's announcement is an important step forward in our continued effort to end the toxic drug emergency in British Columbia. While much of the focus of the toxic drug crisis in BC has been on the effects of a highly unpredictable and poisonous illicit drug supply, we know there is another side to the crisis. Opioid manufacturers were deceptive in the marketing of their products to increase demand without regard to the consequences. This has had a devastating impact on communities throughout British Columbia. This proposed settlement represents a significant step forward in holding companies like Purdue Pharma accountable for their actions. We know the settlement will not make up for the lives lost, the terrible loss of loved ones in our communities. So our government remains steadfast in its commitment to end the public health emergency. With historic investments over the 5 years we've held government, we're building a comprehensive system of mental health and substance use care. This includes early intervention, it includes prevention, harm reduction, treatment. We are treating substance use and addiction as a healthcare matter rather than a criminal justice one, and that was at the foundation of British Columbia becoming the first province in Canada to decriminalize people who use drugs. We are standing up supports in an unprecedented way, but there is much, much more to do, and we are committed to investing in the services people need when they need them. Thank you.
We'd now like to open up the floor to questions.
Thank you, Minister. A reminder to reporters on the phone, please press *1 to enter the queue. Please also remember to take your phone off mute. You will not be audible until your name is called. For media in the room, please line up at the microphone provided to ask a question and wait to be called. Please make sure to provide your full name and outlet. Do we have any questions in the room? Go ahead.
Minister Eby, after the announcement by the Premier last night or yesterday, who might be eligible or is willing to run for leadership in the coming fall?
Well, yesterday, my colleagues and I heard the Premier's plan to step down as our coach and the captain of our team, all wrapped up in one person. It was a remarkable day, certainly for us and for British Columbians, given the incredible contributions he has made to guiding our province through some of the most challenging days British Columbia has ever faced, and doing so while facing remarkable personal health challenges. I think for all of us in caucus, we remain focused on delivering for British Columbians. I know a lot of people are focused on the politics, and our caucus is unified in our need to be focused on the interests of British Columbians, because that has been John's secret to success, and we've seen his leadership on that point, and that's where we're focused right now.
Did you have a follow-up? Our next question, we're going to go to the phone lines. Richard Zussman, Global News. Please go ahead.
Minister Eby, we'll get back to that issue in a moment, but I want to focus on the announcement of the day first. The $150 million, can you talk about specifically where that money goes, and will any of it go to the families of loved ones who have died due to the illicit drug overdose crisis?
So that $150 million is a global settlement amount for Canada. We'll be working with the other provinces and the federal government on a principled division of that settlement amount based on the impact of Purdue's actions in each province and territory. The money and the claim was in relation to healthcare costs incurred by provincial governments. And I can commit to families and to individuals affected by the overdose crisis, whether because they lost a loved one or they're struggling with addiction themselves, that the money will be going to supporting provincial programs to fight the opioid epidemic that we believe Purdue's actions contributed to through their deceptive marketing.
Richard, did you have a follow-up?
For Minister Eby, I know you're acutely aware that you are the perceived front runner to replace Premier Horgan as the NDP leader. Can you talk to me about your thought process here? Are you considering running for leadership, and what is going into your decision making in terms of whether you would like to be the next Premier of British Columbia?
So Premier Horgan has given me a number of files that I take incredibly seriously, including my role as Attorney General and my role as Minister responsible for housing. I have a lot of work to do in relation to those files, and I am also profoundly grateful to the Premier for his leadership and his work that allowed me to be in this position to make announcements like I am today. The news from the Premier was a surprise for many of us, although we certainly understand why he and Ellie made the decision that they did. For my own part, I remain focused on delivering for British Columbians. I'll obviously be having conversations with my family, with my friends and my colleagues, with the party and with British Columbians about how we move forward together. And today, though, I am very focused on doing the work like the settlement announcement that we're making today that the Premier asked me to do.
Our next question is from Katie DeRosa, Vancouver Sun. Please go ahead.
Hi, again for Minister Eby. You obviously talked about some of the big files you were given by the Premier, obviously on housing. If several ministers decide to run for the leadership, what happens to those ministries while the leadership race is underway? And does some of that work, on housing and some of the important files you mentioned, does that work get put into caretaker mode and basically get put on hold during the leadership race?
One of the strengths of John's leadership was his firm commitment to the understanding that the government is no one person, and he did not structure government or cabinet in a way that relied entirely on one person. And so the strength of building that diverse foundation for the success of our government means that British Columbians can have confidence that the work will continue, that despite the fact that John and Ellie have made the decision that he will not continue as Premier, that the work will continue and our commitment to British Columbians will continue.
Katie, did you have a follow-up?
And can you speak to the timing of the Premier's announcement? I know you said it was a surprise. Many of his former colleagues have said it shows his integrity in allowing a long time before the 2024 election for the new leader to gain their clout in the legislature before facing off against Kevin Falcon. So, do you think that is a benefit to whoever is the new Premier?
One of the strengths of John's leadership was his authenticity, and he spoke to that yesterday, that having made the decision not to continue, he didn't feel that he could pretend that he was going to continue or put up the illusion that he was going to, that he had to be frank with British Columbians about where he stood, what he believed, and what he was going to do. And it's that kind of inspiration that every member of our caucus has taken from John. And his commitment to British Columbians to be honest, straightforward, and frank, and not let politics get in the way of delivering for British Columbians. And I know for myself and for all of my colleagues, that's what we're focused on.
Our next question is from Vinder Sajan, CTV. Please go ahead.
Hi there. So I just wanted to get back to this settlement. Can you walk me through how this went down? Because I thought the provinces were looking for an amount in the billions of dollars, and now you're talking about $150 million. So can you just maybe walk us through that portion?
Yes. So there are a couple of components to this. The claims for the impacts of the opioid epidemic on our healthcare system and healthcare costs incurred by provinces in responding to this are very significant and likely in the billions of dollars. In the United States, the claims amount to trillions of dollars and have resulted in the bankruptcy of Purdue's arm in the United States. We face the possibility of being grouped into a number of unsecured creditor claims in that bankruptcy proceeding in the United States, where the full amount available to the entire group is $15 million. And we know of Canadian class actions that are grouped there currently. Because of British Columbia's actions, we were able to avoid the specter of Purdue liquidating their Canadian operations to pay American claims and being limited to essentially $0 as an unsecured creditor in a U.S. bankruptcy proceeding. So in that respect, this is a remarkable accomplishment for British Columbia and all the provinces in Canada to ensure that Canadians see some proceeds from Purdue's actions in deceptively marketing. So the flip side of it, though, of course, is that in terms of the misery suffered by families and individuals grappling with addiction, seeing overdose, no amount of money is going to be sufficient. And certainly, compared to the expense incurred by our province and provinces across Canada, this amount is not going to fully compensate taxpayers for the expenses that have resulted. But I also want to point out that this is just the beginning of our class action work, that there are many manufacturers and distributors, as well as their consultants, that remain named in the litigation, and they are on notice by this settlement that we will be pursuing them aggressively.
Binder, did you have a follow-up?
No, that was it. Thank you.
That's all the questions we have on the phone lines. Do we have any more questions in the room? Perfect. That's all the
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.